really what it is, and this is very Leo, and this is very Lionsgate, is we are electromagnetic. What does that mean? It means the sun is electric because it's yang energy. The earth is magnetic.
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today, I am so excited to be graced with the presence of the amazing George Lewis. And before I say hello to you, George, it's going to be a little bit rude here, but the reason I reached out to you and the reason we connected a couple of months ago, maybe now, is a few of my followers were like, Lucy, please do a video with George. Your two energies together would be amazing. And I'm going to be really honest with you. And I think we both were the same at that point. We didn't have a clue who each other was. But as soon as we spoke on the phone, it was like two long lost buddies that had been brought back together. And it's been the same ever since. So, George, welcome to my YouTube channel. It's so beautiful that you freed up some time to speak to me. How's things?
Oh, it's wonderful. I mean, Lucy, really, at the end of the day, just our coming together is very sort of emblematic of the soul tribe coming together on a massive scale. I mean, it's very easy when it flows. So,
Yeah.
it's just the most natural thing to share because we're both fascinated and empowered by freedom.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm just looking at your background and I'm like, why am I not outdoors doing this? Why am I sat in here rather than being outside in a beautiful, empowered environment? But you know what? I just think it's so divinely orchestrated, this. So first and foremost, I do actually want to go back and just figure out a little bit of who on earth is George Lewis first and foremost. But before we go there, obviously yesterday was Lionsgate. So we're filming this on the 9th of August, 2023. And yesterday was Lionsgate. And you and I really wanted to do something together yesterday, didn't we? But the divine, made things happen. So it wasn't quite aligned. And how are you feeling after the energies of Lionsgate? Because this Lionsgate has felt very different to me to the normal ones. How about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because we've all got to somehow disassociate or distinguish rather when our personal stories with either the love or the angst that we all have with what's happening collectively. Yeah. I would say collectively, this is an unusual, has been and continues to be an unusual Lionsgate because of how the Leo Sirius energy is being interacted with, especially with Venus, which is a benefic. So I don't like to get too technical because I don't like to lose people, but Saturn for many years has been in a dominant position. Saturn is restriction, constriction, suffocation, and basically limitation of freedom. Where Uranus now is coming together with Jupiter, and we're seeing with the benefics of Venus and Jupiter helping this Leo energy of sunlight coming in. Basically, light is being shone on the darkness. It's unprecedented in that sense. And the other thing I'd say is we have to remind ourselves, and I've had to learn this too, that there are certain portals, access points in our calendar where spells have always been done. Now, the obvious one where people can get behind, even if they haven't researched this, is Halloween. Yeah. And without going too much into the detail, a lot of negative energies have been created around these portal times. So the activation of Leo, which rules children, without getting into it, and the activation of Halloween, what we're doing now is we're bringing the power back to us, we the people. And that's what you and I have in common. It's what your listeners have in common. We want, as disclosure, mounts forward, journeys towards the light. We get the goosebumps and we realize, my goodness me, did that really happen? Yes, it did, but we heal from it and we build the new earth out. Leo energy at the end of the day is the sun card, the child, the naked child on the horseback with the sun on his back. It is that resplendent Leo, authentic, divine, charismatic, childlike energy that is sacred. And that is what we're tapping into.
Yeah, I love it. It's really interesting that you bring up a few of those characteristics, actually, because Lionsgate is always a powerful window. It's always been a powerful window, particularly for manifestation. Like, it's very, very quick. This time, it has been amplified, I feel, by about 20.
There we go.
It really has been amplified. Like, I can say something, even if it's flippantly, and within minutes, hours maximum, and I'm talking like 2 hours maximum, it's there in front of me, and I'm like, okay, I've really got to be careful with what I'm talking about right now. But my point of raising that is, like you've very articulately mentioned, we're bringing all of these different elements together now, and we do have multiple planets at play at the moment that are, for some people, causing havoc.
Yeah.
For some people, they're getting their peace. For some people, they're feeling more grounded than they've ever felt, but whilst others are going through. And this is the beautiful thing about astrology. This is the beautiful thing about the way that energies work. If we were all going through the same things at the same times, it would be chaos.
Yeah, totally.
Absolute chaos. And this is why I've been saying for many years now, even before the COVID journey, the awakening has to take place at different stages. There has to be waves, because if everybody gets it at the same time, it would be absolute carnage out there.
Right.
Absolutely.
No, it's so true. And that's where the archetypes play a part. We all have different archetypes, meaning my sun sign is in Aries. My ascendant is in Leo. I have a number of planets in Pisces. That's a particular unique dance. You will have your set of combinations, and so will Tom, Dick, and Harry. And so we're all playing out, yes, within the macro, but individual, soul, authentic, original stories playing out on the micro level. And it's all about how we integrate them, but we stay in the heart. Head to heart, as your book is. It's that coming out of the head into the heart, because then really what it is, and this is very Leo, and this is very Lionsgate, is we are electromagnetic. What does that mean? It means the sun is electric because it's yang energy. The earth is magnetic, which is yin energy. We are the conductor. It's as above, so below, so within, so without. So when we pray, contemplate, meditate, we reignite that conductive connection between the electromagnetic field. And that is the Mars-Venus archetype, if you like, but it's also the solar lunar. Okay. Mm-hmm. And that connection between heaven and earth is then connected, and bingo, we have liftoff.
Amazing. I love it. I love it. So now I want to take a little step back, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Like, who is George Lewis and where on earth has he come from? That's the question that I want to know.
I ask that question myself every day. I mean,
yeah, I resonate with that. I'm like, okay, right, what on earth is going on today? But I'm right to say that you're an artist?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I've always been an artist. I mean, and I describe myself in the healing arts because it's kind of inclusive. It's kind of greedy, because I've always loved healing. For me, I remember I was a 7-year-old boy. I was sent to one of these ghastly English boarding schools at 7 or 8 years old. But I had some fun. And I was a chorister. And I would get all the boys, in the choir at least, to go and stand under these big church bells, literally. And I'd gong them. And I didn't even know what I was doing intellectually, but I would gong them, and everyone would say, George, more. And because everyone would have this vibration, and we'd all be hugging, and it would be incredible. And of course, we know they've got rid of the church bells systematically throughout the world in the last 50 years. We understand the protocol. We don't need to descend into that level. But the Lionsgate and all this asks us to get back into that vibrational frequency. So I guess as an artist, I've always been doing it in my own sort of peculiar way. It's become more professional in the last 10, 15 years.
That's amazing. That is just such an intuitive journey as a 7-year-old boy, right?
Yeah.
Because let's talk about that. Boarding school is tough. I went to a private school. Thankfully, I didn't have to board, thankfully, because I think I probably would have turned into more of a rebel than I am today. However, I did go to a private school, and at the end of my first year in the private school, I sat my dad down and I said, if you're going to make me go back there, no, I'll be going truant. So they moved me from a private school to a grammar school, which, although doesn't sound like much of a difference, it was a massive difference for me, because I was very, very sporty in this private school. There was one of the teachers there who just wanted to hold me back. It just wanted to hold me back. Like I was played netball at a very, very, very high standard, and she just wanted to hold me back, and I just didn't like it. I didn't have my voice back then, which is really quite fascinating. And what's even more fascinating is that they sent me for elocution lessons. Clearly didn't do a good job, did they? Money well spent, parents, money well spent. So I know what it's like to go to a private school, at least, but I was a little bit older. I think I went there when I was 11/12. Talk to me about what it was like going to a boarding school away from your family at 7 years of age.
I absolutely loathe the whole process. I mean, I have to be honest about it. It's and by the way, I don't blame my parents. No. Because it look, we grew up in Britain. I haven't lived in the United Kingdom for I mean, well over a Jupiter cycle. I haven't actually lived in Britain, I don't think, for 14, 15 years now. And then I was living in the Middle East before. I got out of Dodge as quickly as I could. I, for me, anything Saturnian, don't forget, Britain's a Capricorn country. It's ruled by Saturn. It is what it is. I mean, when people really wake up to these truths, what's the United States? Yes, with all its chaos, it's Cancer. It's the Cancer sign. It's the heartland. It's the homeland. It's the maternal. Yes, it's been corrupted, and we can get into that and why the deep state has had to take the United States down because of her beloved constitution, and how it's had to be corrupted for many, many decades. But at the end of the day, the United Kingdom for me was very restrictive. And to someone who's truly artistic, I mean, I'm not talking fake pseudo intellectual art of London and New York, where you live in the head and everything's about nihilism and the desecration of the divine. I mean, that's what modern art's been. It is what it is. It was a hard place to grow up, but I had to go through it. I chose that. I chose that life, as we all do. And that realization brings you out of victimhood and into victor. And that's taken me a while. Because I was certainly in victimization for a while. And it wasn't that I was Mr. Unpopular the entire time. I buried myself. I actually put on the Harry Potter cloak, especially at the second boarding school. The second boarding school from 13 to 18 was horrendous. Wow. But I actually learned to make myself invisible. I've never spoken about that, but I feel safe in your orbit. And it succeeded. And I realized subconsciously my magical powers of being able to shut myself down. Because if I hadn't shut myself down, I think some pretty ghastly things would have happened, actually.
Yeah, wow. So in being placed somewhere where you felt extremely vulnerable, somewhere you didn't want to be, actually, and this is what I love about this journey, in our moments of absolute despair, in our moments of like, why has this happened to me? Isn't there so much gold? And you learn this
with hindsight.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, you don't get it at the time. I mean, the further along you go on the journey, I think you recognize it a lot quicker. But when you are a 13 to 18-year-old boy at the end of the day, because you're a boy at that age, like, that's tough. You've got hormones kicking in. You've got all sorts of different things happening physiologically and, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. And you're in a place that you really do not like. Yet now, looking back, you actually learned some gifts, probably, of how to be as resilient as you are today.
Yes.
Like you said, how to cloak yourself, how to be invisible, which, as much as we're all talking about these days, like, stand up, be who you are, let the world know, show the world how much you love yourself by speaking your truth. At times, you need to be invisible.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, I've had to be invisible the last 4 or 5 days whilst I've been traveling. I've had to be invisible, George. So I can resonate completely. What were you going to say? Sorry for cutting you off there.
No. I mean, it's nothing really. I mean, there's so much I could say, but I feel, the lessons were profound at boarding school, learning to observe and be the witness and to put on that Harry Potter cloak, because it was survival. Otherwise, the older boys would have taken advantage. Just leave it at that.
Yeah.
The old stories of English boarding school are real.
Yeah.
And I think I was in that last era. I always remember my father saying to me, I'm the oldest of 4. My youngest brother is 10 years younger than me. I always remember Daddy saying to me, I don't know, sometime in my late 20s, the difference between you and your youngest brother was a world away. That the schools that I went to in the 1980s and early 90s was still more similar to my father's in the 40s and 50s than they were a decade later. Wow. The shift from really the mid 80s, the mid 90s was huge in the United Kingdom. So for me, my boarding school really did toughen me up. I'll give you one other quick example where it's positive. I want to keep it positive because with hindsight, I went to live in the Middle East for 3 or 4 years in my late 20s, mid late 20s, and I had an amazing experience. I was painting at some point for the commissions for the King of Oman, and I had some really wonderful times where I was living in the desert. And I remember went to live with the Al Rashidi tribe in the Nejd Desert of Kuwait and Saudi Arabia for about a month. And we journeyed through, and it was a very Spartan experience, and it was all men. And something, people said, George, how are you able to do this so well? And it was tough, but I said, it was a bit of a breeze. And the reason why is I'd been trained at English boarding school. That Spartan experience, that toughness, that stiff upper lip allowed me to really get the beauty out of the desert. And it was hard with the, you basically just ate, goat and dates and coffee and tea, and it was pretty basic. But I got to know the stars.
Yeah.
And I started as an astronomer. I mean, for me, it was all about, in the Saudi Arabia desert, those stars are like being on a boat in the middle of the Atlantic. You can see right down to the horizon. So, when the sun sets, you see Mercury for those 10, 15 minutes, as he always, the Hermes pops up and then he goes. He's very ephemeral. And, one doesn't normally get to see Mercury because he's so close to the sun. So just things like that. And then, of course, that snowballed me into astrology much later on, and it helped. Yeah.
Amazing. I had an amazing experience in Morocco, witnessing all of the different formations and the planets. And oh my gosh. So listening to you saying you're in the desert for a month, like my soul's like, it sounds like pure heaven. Although I'm not sure I could cope with eating the goat because I'm a vegetarian these days. I'm not sure about that. But it sounds like a truly magical experience. And like you say, George, and I think that's a really, really pertinent message for this video. We have been primed to do what we need to do in our younger years. So the experiences that we've gone through at school, and that's pretty treacherous for some people. Yeah. Some people weren't as lucky as you at boarding school. Some people did have things happen, and did go through horrific experiences. And when I say it's primed you for what you're going to do later on in life, like that's a tough pill to swallow sometimes when you hear that from somebody that hasn't gone through it themselves. But I love what you say. I truly believe we did pick all of the lessons that we're going through right now. We did pick our mission. We did know exactly what we were coming down here to do. And we had to go through the reminders of how we behave and how we get through these situations. If you hadn't been to boarding school, you probably wouldn't have lasted that month in the desert.
No, I wouldn't have lasted it at all.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's absolute gold. So we've gone from a 7-year-old boy all the way to 18 in private boarding school.
Yeah.
What happened after then? I'm assuming you went off to university. Where did
I went to Padua University, which I loved. I from a very young age, actually, when my mother and father took us skiing to Italy for the first time, I think I was 11 or 12. And I got a downline. I said, I know Italy is a major part of me. And it was always the springboard to the Middle East and the rest of the world. I fell in love with Italy when I was 11 or 12. And I always knew that Italy would have a very special place in my heart. And it's increasingly going to be this. This is playing out now in more so. So it's almost like I had a prediction that Italy was going to be of consequence. And of course, at the age of 18, 19, after a gap year where I went to teach at a school in New Zealand, I then go to Padua University where I read politics and philosophy in Italian. Wow. And that was just really, really amazing.
So you're just a fascinating man, aren't you? You're a fascinating man. I love the fact that we connect on so many levels because of our wandering soul. And, we've never spoken about Italy before, but I get it so much. And I love
the Italians so much. I mean, beautiful.
And I know it's going to play out in your future, which is just absolutely incredible. I love that so much. So you've gone from 7 to 18 in a private school, you've taken a gap year, you've gone off to New Zealand, you've done your thing, you've then gone to Italy to study quite heavy subjects in a foreign language, I hasten to add. Where did the art come from?
I've always done it. I would go and stay with my grandmother. I was very, very close to, I was always very close to my grandmother. I mean, really, in some ways, my grandmother kept me alive, actually. I found England, I found it very, very bizarre throughout my life. It is what it is. And I'd go down and stay with my grandmother. She lived on the south coast of England. And, she'd long been a widow. I never knew my maternal grandfather, and I'd paint watercolors, and she would guide me. She wasn't an artist, but she had a great. I think she was a closet mystic, my grandmother. And I'd go.
No,
and
shit.
No,
and gifts. I'm gonna guess.
And she nurtured me, and I practice. I'd literally do watercolors. I'd sometimes copy. She had lovely watercolors. I'd copy them. There's ones of Venice. This is when I was a young boy, and I was so turned. I'd never been to Venice. I was so turned on by Venice. And then there were other friends later on who had one friend of mine had 4 sergeants in his collection of Venice, and I would literally just go to stay with him for the weekend and copy these incredible pieces of artwork until I actually got quite good at it. So I spent all my early 20s as an amateur just copying the masters.
Wow. Again, there's a great message in that, right? The people
Yeah.
that have walked before you, they know what they're doing. Like, go follow them, go copy them. If there's somebody out there, ladies and gents, that you're like, I want to do more of what they do, go walk their footprints. You know, I've got an assistant, she's my head coach actually, and she literally stalked me. She saw me speaking on stage in 2018, and she literally placed herself in front of me. She now works for me and runs my business when I'm not around, you know, like it works, ladies and gents. Like, just do what you need to do. And I love the message that you've just said, like, you mirrored the masters.
I did, and I went to Leonardo da Vinci's house 2 or 3 times in France, and I was fascinated.
That's a message for me. Thank you.
His inventions, and thinking out of the box, and his whole approach to just society and humanity. And it was, I think there's more stuff that's been hidden. I mean, I'm very interested in the Library of Alexandria. I'm very fascinated in the hidden library of the Vatican, which is going to be revealed to us in this lifetime. I mean, the hidden knowledge of really the reality of our dimension is coming out, and we're here for the Great Awakening, boys.
It really is.
I mean, that's why you and I are here together. Absolutely. Is yes, it's freedom, but what does that really mean? When we're truly free, it's everything from time travel upwards, downwards, sideways. It's the ability for us to really enter into that divine space and join what I call as the divine sacred matrix of 4-5D upwards, as opposed to the as David Icke would say, the trap, which is the perceptual 3D matrix, which is keeping us in limitation, which is Saturn, Satan, same thing. So, you know, for me, the art, and I'm talking in big grandiose ways here, but the art has always been a way towards beauty. Beauty is truth, it's consciousness, it's love. And you know, all the movies that inspire me have always been about love. I mean, you know, in the final analysis, I'm much more interested in love than wisdom, than knowledge, actually, even though I love knowledge. Without love, what is the point to come to this domain, essentially? You know, Venus is in Taurus right now. Actually, no, sorry, the moon is in Taurus, conjunct Jupiter and Uranus. That's very sensual today. We're having a, you know, it has to be about good food, sensuality, love, connection.
It is. It's amazing. I love it. You know, I'm listening to you speak and I'm like, I feel like I need to go to Italy with you and like just sit and drink some wine and just converse and just like, I think we'll come up with a master plan, you know. Genuinely, I'm sat here going, oh, like I'm just there with you, you know. It's so amazing, George. I love it. I just want to go back to Leonardo da Vinci because that was a message for me. So thank you for giving me that message. I've actually been channeling Leonardo da Vinci quite a lot recently, and I don't mean producing amazing masterpieces, by the way. I really wish I could.
I know what you mean. This is very important if you're channeling him. You've got some messages to share.
Absolutely. And this guy was the original truther. Like, his artwork and his masterpieces hold a lot of answers to what is taking place right now. Do you agree with that?
Very much so. And I think it's also to be open to the fact that what we understand of him and his inventions and his revelations, we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg, and we're seeing it in fragments, because of course they can't suppress it all. But you see what happens with Princess Diana called it the men in the grey suits. I might call it the Illuminati or the deep state. It doesn't really matter what we call it, is control power wants to take the creativity, because they can't create these types of 3-dimensional lower frequencies. They don't create, they rely on us. It's called the louche, to get our creativity, and then they invert it and they use it against us. They've always done it. So with Leonardo da Vinci, he was very creative, but then he was brought in through payment and success into the orbit of the Vatican. And so it's quite murky just how much access do we have to really all his blueprints of, if you like, ancient Tesla technology, because at the end of the day, Leonardo da Vinci was an early Tesla, or Tesla is a later version of da Vinci. And I'm talking Nikola Tesla. I'm not talking Elon Musk. We're not discussing that.
No, we're not.
The inventor, the Project Looking Glass, time travel, John Trump, Uncle John, Donald Trump's uncle, who was great friends with the Kennedys, but also very good friends with Tesla, understanding, the Edison-Tesla battle and how Edison was pushed because we had to keep charging everyone for energy. We cannot have free energy on this planet, otherwise the people will awaken. Since the timeline shift to 2016, suddenly we have the ability to have free energy for the first time since the fall of Atlantis. This is a big deal. And
huge deal.
And people like Da Vinci, got this. And of course, we'd only know a fraction of the truth. And this is memory for me. This is remembrance somehow, some way, as it is for you. So keep downloading, honey.
It's the weird thing about it, when I was just talking to you then, I'm like, oh shit, he's embodied in you. She was just like, oh my god, that might actually be a real thing. I'll do some meditation on that, because that would be
maybe
a bit
and here's the thing is,
or something.
I love it when people can tap in and access that knowledge. I don't have that skill set to be able to say I am this and that. I've met 25 people who claim they're Alexander the Great. Some of them are bonkers, some of them are brilliant. I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm meeting a lot of people at the moment that are claiming to be Jesus, like a lot of people that are claiming to do that. Now, just to clear this up from my perspective, because I often speak about these kind of things on my channel, but I don't believe that, and I might be wrong here, but I believe that there are codes that are laid all over the world, and I might walk the path of, let's say, Mary Magdalene, and I'll pick up some of her codes because I'm completely in resonance where she is. That doesn't mean I am her. It just means I've got some of the codes and I'm doing some of the work that she's doing. But likewise, I might have some of the codes of Joan of Arc, or, and that's the way I view this, just to be really, really clear. But there are a lot of people out there that are saying they are the embodiment of Jesus or the embodiment of whoever. And again, it's down to perspective, ladies and gents. Make your own decision on it. I'm not going to tell you what to think. I've just shared my perspective.
I really resonate with your perspective, and I haven't heard it expressed so clearly like that before, but that resonates in my body with goosebumps, pilar erections, as they officially call it. I think in a way we do tap into these ascended masters, however we want to describe them, these great mentors, and when we match the frequency, then they can literally imbibe us with light codes.
I got goosebumps.
And that's also very Lionsgate, because part of Lionsgate, bringing it back to our conversation, is the planetary alignment to create this portal for manifestation, as you said, but also for light codes to be upgraded. So whether it's the Joan of Arc, radical freedom, or Leonardo da Vinci, the incredible way to get to higher forms of consciousness through understanding the mechanics of the universe, in a way, Tesla 369, and understanding time travel and gravity or not, it's powerful stuff. And so the ego has to be often kept in check. And I find, for me, my freedom, and I've had to learn this the hard way, as an Aries, my freedom has come from sharing the pie as an individual, meaning I'm a kid exploring this. And when I release my egos, I do not know, but I'm a kid in the candy shop trying to always gather more information, or what the analogy, maybe there's a better analogy. One's always trying to find new mentors, new ways of acquiring knowledge, wisdom, and love. Then in a way, we're all doing it together, as opposed to suddenly I'm on the top of the old pyramid, I'm in charge, and that's back in the old matrix.
Yeah, that hierarchical thing doesn't resonate with me in the slightest. And this is where I have I'm going to use the word struggle, and I'd never use that word, but where I've struggled with the truth movement of late. Not at the beginning. I believe everybody was shoulder to shoulder and we were going for it. But now I feel that it's become very divisional, and there are people that want to lead, and they're probably positioning themselves in a position which actually they shouldn't be trying to position themselves in, because it's more about ego and having inflated ego than being shoulder to shoulder. And that's just my perspective. Again, I'm not expecting you to share that view. I just feel right now we need to be finding the people that are completely resonant on love.
Oh, well, 100%. And the other thing is, we all have to march to the beat of our own drum. Absolutely. And with the North Node in Aries making this tough but delightful square with Pluto in Capricorn, and it's very powerful, these angles at the moment, it is forcing us, hopefully positively, to step into our own self-sovereignty and power, where we don't have to necessarily do everything commercially or do something to get ahead. We just follow our heart, and then the universe supports us. Happiness in some ways is not about getting what you want, it's about enjoying all that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's building relationships like we're doing now, and allowing the alchemical process in God to reveal itself. And
Absolutely.
the journey, and then there's freedom in that, as opposed to constant control, which is really Saturn. And I will bring it back to the archetype. Saturn always wants to limit and control, and so when we think we're controlling everything, there's an exhaustion. As a result, the chronological age is way bigger than the biological age of the person, and that's where you see early death. Kronos rules death. You see, it's the side. It's almost like, the father of time. He's chronotic, and so when we go to Saturnian, we go to an early grave.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of things. Eris recently
Yes,
is
yes,
very, very important, I feel.
she is.
Like, this is what is wild right now. I'm having conversations with people that I would never, even 6 months ago, I would never have anticipated. One of my best girlfriends called me up yesterday and she's like, Lucy, Eris, I've done some research on Eris. And I'm like, okay, babe. And I'm thinking, how on earth does she know about this? Right? Like, where has this come from? And so I thought, oh, I'm going to let this play out. Anyway, I didn't realize that the new COVID strain apparently here in the UK is called Eris, right? I have no knowledge on any of that stuff. I just don't follow any of it. So that's where it started from. But then obviously she went down the astrological route and everything like that. And I was like, okay, now this is what I'm talking about. I feel Eris right now is so pivotal to what we're about to step into, what is about to unfold. What's your views on that?
Yeah, well, this is very fascinating. So remember, there were two strains called Delta and Omicron, and both
Yes.
are islands in Antarctica next door to Rothschild Island. I'll say that one more time for the listeners. Omicron and Delta are islands in Antarctica where we aren't allowed to go, next door to Rothschild Island. Okay, so just start to look at the symbolism. So we're going to have now a new strain coming out of modern Babylon, Britain, called Eris, which is conjunct the North Node in Aries. Well, that's interesting. So Eris, who is she? She's the sister of Mars, or Aries, and she is, in a way, let's go to the modern myth, she's maleficent. She's not invited to the party. Okay, and she's powerful, destructive feminine energy. Now, it can be used for good or for ill. On our side, it would be the uncompromising Amazonian feminine archetype of standing up for children and the weak, and the massive protector of humanity. On the low side, it will be the bludgeoning desecration of the child in underground bases.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is, Eris is coming to the fore. The archetype has been more hidden before. She's a trans-Neptunian planet. Her elliptic is very, very severe. She comes in and out. It's a bit like Nubaru, and the Anunnaki. I mean, some of these orbits are so extreme that they can be out of reach of us for thousands and thousands of years, and then they come in and then they affect us. Pam Gregory talks very beautifully, as a British astrologer who's very awake about these trans-Neptunian planets. I think we have to pull the Eris energy into that radical sense of freedom and support for the new Earth, and use that energy to say no to those heinous crimes.
Yeah, and bringing everybody together. It's like, I see, like I was saying earlier, shoulder to shoulder, linking arms, like really including everybody, not oh no, your face doesn't fit, so you can't speak here, like, which actually takes place quite a lot, doesn't it, in society these days. So it's just been really, really prevalent. But like I say, it was like a little, I couldn't believe where this came from yesterday, because although my friend is very awake, to the truth, stuff, like that kind of conversation, I just didn't know where it came from. But it's fascinating the way that things are being shared with us, and they are being brought up into our consciousness, so that people do have the awareness, so they do start researching, because that's all it took. It was a word, she researched it, and she said to me, oh my God, does this mean it's really bad? And I said, well, it depends on your perspective. For me personally, it's a good thing. It's about, putting a rocket up their butts. It's about social inclusion. It's about really coming together in a good way. So I just wanted to touch on that as well, because I thought it was quite interesting with the conversation you were having. So how did you go from art into what you do now, because now you are incredible in the world of healing, aren't you? You've set up things, and I'd like you to share some of this because my followers would love to know and obviously follow you and support you on what you're doing.
Well, I mean, I still paint. I mean, art is so integral to me. I mean, I just did a couple of commissions in Hawaii the other day, painting the beautiful landscape. I mean, they're on my Instagram, and I can share them with people if they want to see them on my private Telegram channel and elsewhere. But art is very healing for me. It allows me to ground and reconnect to nature. I love painting water. That's always been a big thing for me, painting water. I've built a little reputation of being quite skilled at painting
A
water.
little.
It's I love
That's very humble.
I do love water. We all love water. I think it's something transformative and alchemical. When any of us, why do 95% of the planet, or is it 90% of the planet, live within 5 miles of the water or whatever? It's something amazing about watching water. It's not even just being on it, which I love. Is watching water. Something, it reconfigures our neurological pathways in our brain, in our heart, and something is transformed. So the art's always there, but in a way, the healing arts is just, I mean, this man came into my life about 9 years ago now, through a friend of mine who had a dream, and he was a Jungian astrologer. He was one of the last students of Dr. Emoto, and he became my first astrology teacher.
Wow.
And he taught me for 2 years. I mean, and I downloaded this from him. I mean, and then after 2 years, he turned to me, which I was very upset with. I mean, I burst into tears at lunch. He said, "George, I don't want to see you again. You know more than I do. I think you're done. Off you go." And that was an extraordinary experience of 2 years of downloading this. And then, of course, I have other mentors, and I'm always learning, and I integrate it, with healing and sound and frequency. I've always been a musician. And so for me, healing and astrology, these are all tools, human design. I do tarot as well. I've done tarot for years. They're tools to access your divine archetypal codes. And when we access them, then we're able to get back onto that vector journey towards consciousness. We feel more supported. We know ourselves better. And then when we know thyself, then we can help other people.
Absolutely.
And so it's just all together. It doesn't matter whether I'm painting a picture or gardening or reading tarot. It's or using sound. I love working crystals and Tibetan bowls. I lived in Bhutan off and on for 3 years. I painted the royal family there, and I did a lot of astrology for people there. I mean, fascinating times, and worked a lot with them as an ambassador for happiness. And that was as I was awakening and realizing many different things within the United Nations and the corruption therein. But for me, it's always been about art and healing, really, because that's what it's about. That's what Leonardo da Vinci probably was all about too, is art is uplifting towards God, to consciousness.
It's in your head now, isn't it? Those codes are like in your body, that. I could see like the light bulbs coming on as you were talking, and I was like, he's going to get this later. I just sometimes throw these comments out, and then later on I'm like, oh God, yeah, I'm spot on. So you've basically taken this creativity, and I truly believe most of the connection that we get to self is through creativity, whether it's dance, whether it's music, whether it's communication, whether it is like whatever your flair is, whether it's food. There's some people out there so creative with food, like it is so amazing. And so yours was art, your nan, your grandmother helped you awaken to this, and then obviously by default of that you've gone, this actually can help me heal. This can help. So if it's helping me heal, it's going to help other people heal somewhere, maybe not consciously but subconsciously. You've gone on this journey, and now what does healing look like for you these days? I know you said you use tarot and you do readings and yada yada yada, but for like, I know that you're working on things, a bigger picture from a healing perspective.
I'm doing quite a lot of retreats now these days. So I've got a retreat coming up in Miami. I just did a fantastic one. I had 17 students in Norway about a month ago for the summer solstice. That was a great success. I'm doing Bosnian pyramids, which is really exciting.
Amazing. Oh my God.
I mean, that's going to be so cool. I'm taking a nice group. We're just going to release this to people soon, going to the Bosnian pyramids. And of course, these are as big as the Giza ones in Egypt. They just haven't.
Amazing. The energy. Oh my gosh.
So and then for me, I've also just you can learn how to use energy. So obviously, when I'm with people, I've always had very electric hands. I have a very strong Uranian archetype. It's directly opposite my moon. Sometimes astrology is very literal. If you have a moon directly opposite the sun, moon directly opposite Uranus, you tend to have greater electrical charge in your hands. And so I can pull in electrical charge and then help activate people. And it's not me, I'm just a conductor.
Yeah,
Okay.
cool.
So that's all. And I like to show people how to do that, how to activate their fire, because a lot of people are losing their fire. Part of the global system of squashing Mars, sacred masculinity, pushing us more towards a transhuman agenda. Why? Because then humans can be much more controlled when you take away the aspect of fire, Mars energy. So I do it in a very spiritual way by reactivating, showing people how to become more self-sovereign. It's very Aries. And then I can do it sometimes remotely. I practiced on someone the other day. I've never really done much remote recently because I've always wanted to do it in person, but the world is thus. And I did some remote on this man and it worked very nicely.
Amazing.
That was very, very, very satisfying for me because I was still in an element of doubt about how I could do it remotely. And of
Yeah.
course, to heal or to use the energy to activate the healing, they're very, very important. Firstly, you must love that person unconditionally. You must love yourself unconditionally.
Yeah.
And then you must also 100% believe that you are able to activate the change that they desire. So it's very pure. So until we can activate all those lanes, it's not going to be as effective.
Absolutely. I love what you said there because COVID gave me that lesson. I used to travel the world and do seminars and do all of this amazing stuff, retreats, you name it, whatever. And then obviously when COVID hit, I was like, oh shit, what am I going to do? You know, like I can't see people in person. How am I going to do this? And I bumped everything online and I was skeptical, George. I really was skeptical when I started running my seminars online and people were like, oh my God, it's even more powerful online. And I feel it was because the people that would have sat at the back and never asked questions all of a sudden could ask questions because it was in a chat box, and actually it shifted things massively. So then I was like, oh, clearly I'm much more powerful online, I'll just stay online. And then I did a seminar last September called Soul School, one of the things that I do, which I'd love you to come to at some point, you know, speak and all the rest of it. But I did one in Bournemouth, where I'm from, and everyone was like, oh my God, I've forgotten how powerful you were. And literally these people were rattling. And then a few months later, I did one in Manchester. And again, you know, 200 people in a room were like, oh my God, like this is really intense. And I feel we get caught up in these pockets that we put ourselves in.
Yeah.
We can be just as powerful online as
So
we are.
something came to me as you were sharing that. The empath and the introvert can online get activated to be more seen, where in person the introvert and empath is going to be more receding. So that's a positive of AI. Now I think we have to manage both, and this is a preference. I love working online and I do it. I did 5 or 6 readings yesterday online, which is a long day for me. Normally I don't like to do more than 4, and not every day, because I like to paint sometimes, but there's something for me very special. I had 2 in-person healings the last 2 days, having that human connection.
Oh, I love it.
They respond. I'm going to be honest, for me, I just can go deeper and be authentic, because maybe where my soul is at the moment, that human connection is so important. When I give my workshops and lectures, I am really talking about our biologic, as opposed to our artifice. And so for me, the more we can push into the human connection, the more we grow. So AI is helpful when we can't do, like you and I doing this now. It's lovely, but I look forward to giving you a good hug.
Oh, me too.
Physical space with you and our team.
Absolutely. I that is something I'm very excited about. And I know I just mentioned Soul School, but I'm going to speak to you offline about this, because I would love, I mean, I've got so many people in America are like, please come and do one over here. Like I've done Europe a few times now, and they're like, Lucy, for God's sake, don't forget about us over here. And I'm not. It's just been, you know, the noise and the bureaucracy and all the rest of it that's been going on over there. But that is gone now. So we do need to get something organized over there. And I would love, honestly, you would love it, George. Honestly, it's one of those things that I don't know why God gave me that mission, but I'm so bloody grateful for it, because I get to, like you say, connect with people that might have been following me for a day, or they might have been following me for a year or 5 years or whatever. I get to connect with them on a level, and it is a literal soul activation. It is the most beautiful, beautiful thing. And like I say, I feel so grateful that it got given to me, because I get to travel, I get to meet amazing people, and I get to do my thing. And I always get incredible speakers to come and share, because it's not about me, it's about bringing different personalities and different energies together so that we get to everybody.
Yeah, I think you have to meet my sister. She's an amazing healer based in the West Country of
I'd
England.
love that.
Yeah, sometime. Yeah, I think you two are
I'd love that. Definitely. We'll have to. Yeah, I'd really, really like. It's weird because I feel as if I've known you a million lifetimes.
Yeah.
Genuinely. I thought that from our first conversation. I'm like, why have I never spoken to this man before? Like, why did I not even know you existed?
But I think, what's lovely about the COVID pandemic, as I call it, scamdemic, is, I'm being serious now, is the great reset begets the great awakening. The emergency begets the emergence. Thank you, COVID, for your charlatanness, because it brings us, our soul family, together in a rapid way, with the light codes, to quote you back, are downloaded very abruptly.
Absolutely. George, I could sit here and speak to you all day, every day, and I'm sure my listeners would absolutely love that. They'll just be like, why don't you two just sit on? You don't need to sleep ever, do you? But what I would love to do is, I know we've spoken about doing an Instagram live together. So ladies and gents, all of our details are going to be underneath. The way that you can contact George, attend his retreats, everything will be in the description field. So please do go and check that out. I feel that we need to do some more conversations on YouTube, but we will definitely do something imminently in the next week or two on Instagram, because I think that's, it's an instantaneous process. We can get that out and people will get access to it immediately, whereas obviously YouTube is a little bit of a delay. But George, I've loved speaking to you, and I've loved learning. Obviously you and I have had a chat before, but I've loved learning a little bit more about you. To everybody on here, if it hasn't been made clear, George is based in the US now, and he's been based over there 15 years. You said something like that, right?
Yeah, just under, about 12, 13 years. Yeah.
Perfect. So, it obviously, because of technology these days, anybody can reach out to anybody. So I'm going to pop all of George's details in the description field, and we will be back very, very soon. And God knows where our next conversation will go, but I keep being showed the word consciousness. So there's going to be something that we're going to do that is just going to spark a new level of consciousness, I feel. But George, honestly, from my heart, I am so grateful that our paths have crossed. I'm so grateful to the people, and if you're watching this, thank you for putting us in touch with each other. And ladies and gents, don't ever hold back. If you're following George and you've just found this video and you're like, God, you need to connect with this person, message him. We are normal human beings, and we do want to connect with our soul family, and we trust your intuition completely, and I think this is a perfect alignment of that, right?
Yeah, totally. Thank you so much. It's been really nice to be able to share with you.
It's wonderful. And I'm so glad, because obviously I had lots of questions about, how you got involved in the healing and getting into astrology and things like that. But having it clarified here is beautiful. And it means that my followers have now they've got an insight into you, and I've seen, as amazing as you are, I've seen you step through a really beautiful journey here, and it's just the vibration that I know people need, so that they can trust their soul and their heart that you are the person that they need to reach out to, maybe go on your retreats or whatever. So honestly, George, you're an amazing man. Keep doing your thing, and we will speak very, very soon.
So are you, darling Lucy. Lots of love to you.
Thank you.
Beauty, love, grace, everything.
Always, my friend, always. Okay, ladies and gents, thank you so much for watching. We will catch up with you super soon. Thank you.